Looking for a visual view for this deck. Huh. Wait, can I just look at the deck without the sideboard first? I can't yet. Or can I? 1 sec. I'll put those there for now, but I'm looking for a visual view. Maybe I just need to make a separate deck. It's kind of, how is there not a visual view here? Oh, wait, maybe it's here? Okay, there we go. Can I zoom in any? It's kind of blurry, isn't it? Oh, this is the maximum amount of zooms? Okay. Okay, well, we'll talk about the deck real quick. I mean, I mostly played stock domain, mostly because I thought there would be a lot more Boros tokens, Boros Convoke, however you want to put it. It's also the deck I'm the most comfortable with. The other decks I were considering were both Boros and Dimir. And if I had played Dimir, I would have played with Invasion of Amonkhet in my deck. I did play against that style of Dimir deck a few times in the tournament. I think it's just... I generally think it's better the way I play the game, but it's not necessarily overall better. What did I think of the overall metagame breakdown? I mean, it's about what I expected. A few notes. I only played 3 Invasion of Zendikar, because I didn't really expect that many mirror matches, and I think Invasion of Zendikar is at its best in the mirrors. A lot of decks, I think, you just have to spend time killing their stuff, like at every point in the curve, or interacting with them. Also, because I wanted to sideboard black cards and play Temporary Lockdown, I went back to 4 Herd Migration. I used to have 4 Invasion, 3 Herd Migration, but I think it's just too important to have double white on turn 3 for your lockdown. Like, the second untapped white source matters a lot. The 3 life matters a lot. A lot of that stuff is going on there. So that's why I play 4 Herd Migration, 3 Invasion. I also side out Invasion and Atraxa a lot more than I think most people do. But I think there's just a ton of matchups where you don't even need Atraxa in your deck. Like, basically, if people are trying to kill you really fast or pinch you on mana or interact with you a lot, Atraxa becomes a lot worse. Like, in the post-board games versus a lot of the UBX decks, I'll cut, like, 1 Atraxa in all my invasions and just wait to draw it in the late game when I'm more likely to have a Cavern of Souls for it, not just, like, try to turbo it out and make disappeared or whatever, you know? So those are thoughts there. Even as of, like, Friday morning, I didn't have the Nissa 7, then I decided to put it back in my deck. When I woke up at, like, 7 a.m., I'm just like, I probably should just play the Nissa 7, I think. It just is... It's too important in the game ones. I used to have 2 Tidebinders, but you have to make room if you're going to play a bunch of lockdowns. So basically, I have 1 fewer Beanstalk than most people do. I used to have 2 Tidebinders, but I only have 1 now. And I have 3 lockdowns in my main deck. One note, where most people have 3rd Forest, I have a Rafine's Tower, because I want to sideboard in Long Goodbye and a bunch of blue cards. I think you just need the extra blue-black source, really. Like, and it should be white for your lockdowns as well. Like, just the white sweepers, I think, matter too much for that Triumph not to be blue-white, black Triumph, essentially. Esper Triumph, yes. So, those are the majority of my thoughts on the deck. I'll stop for a second, see if anyone has any questions about anything I said right there. Invasion is the card you side out the most for sure. Yeah, I believe that. Why 3 Beanstalk instead of 4? Because it's overkill a lot of the time. You often don't even want to commit 2. And versus a lot of the... there's just a lot of Fairy Masterminds and a lot of Boros decks around. I just think you don't actually need to ever get 2 Beanstalks going in a game, so I'm fine cutting exactly 1. I think like a matchup where that hurts me in is the mirror match, but I think also having the Tidebinder and Nissa 7 makes up for that shortfall a little bit. And also my sideboard for the Doan Mirrors is actually pretty good, in my opinion. Two Sunfall? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so this is more non-intuitive, but I just noticed in a lot of the games I was playing, people would play as though the only sweepers that existed were Lockdown and Sunfall. They would just commit everything on turn 4, then leave up Counterspell for your 5 mana. So if you switch 2 Sunfalls to 2 Depopulates, you punish the people who know about your so-called stock list with only 4 Sunfalls. Also with Boros Convoke, I think having a cheaper sweeper matters a lot more as well. Like, I just played against so many people who acted like, oh, you can only Sunfall me, then I just cast Depopulate, and then the game was just over. Because, like, I killed, like, 4 or 5 of their creatures. I actually thought about playing 3 Depopulate, 1 Sunfall, but you actually do run into issues where the Incubate token actually matters a lot as well. So I went with the 2-2 split. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some matchups where it would just be better to play Depopulate, like in just 0 Sunfall. Okay, so Bobby pitched me a wiffle ball question. Why play Long Goodbye instead of Lithomantic Barrage? Short answer is I think Long Goodbye is a much more powerful card, and it answers a lot of the issues the deck has problems with. Creature lands are a big problem for the deck. Like, I've been killed by Risen... no, not Risen Reef. Restless Reef more than once as this deck. Because basically most Domain decks have no way to kill a creature land besides Boseiju who endures. So that's not a lot of answers. I have 2 Long Goodbye and Wandering Emperor for that. Second, it's uncounterable, which matters a lot. Like, just killing a Planeswalker, like Kaito or Liliana, no questions asked, matters a lot. Killing Rafine on the draw, because it gets through the ward, matters a lot. I just think, despite its mana cost being kind of awkward, you don't really always have to cast on turn 2. If your plan's to cast on like turn 4 or 5, you can probably have a untapped Black Source by that point as well, alongside another play, you know? So I view Long Goodbye as a turn 4 or 5 play. Sometimes you cast on turn 2 on the draw versus Rafine. It's just a great tool to have. I was even siding it in versus Azorius Control because you need to deal with their Seed Sharks. Like, in a post-board game, Seed Shark is the most important card from Azorius, I think. And I don't want to have sweepers in my deck versus them because they're mostly dead. So that is the Long Goodbye spiel. Yes, Rafine's... I experimented with cutting Proving Ground for Rafine's Tower before and playing it at Forest. I kind of missed having the extra Black Source when I started playing Long Goodbye. So I think you have to cut a Forest. So you're playing a little bit with danger on the number of green sources you have, but I think you still have a lot. You have 4 Jetmir Garden, 4 Spar's Headquarters, 4 Zeator's Proving Ground, that's 12. Then you have Forest Boseiju, that's 15. And then the Caverns can fix for a Topiary Stomper, which is one of the more green-heavy cards in the deck. So I think it is within tolerable bounds, but I would not blame you for being scared about it. Also, I count Herd Migration as some percentage of a green source as well. You know, it's just all of those factors tying together for why I played Rafine's Tower. I actually did consider playing 1 Spelunking just to make my lands enter untapped more. I'm still not sure if that's good or not. I did not end up doing it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was good, I guess is what I would say. So that's basically most of the main deck. I like having Sea Shark in the sideboard. I don't know if that's like... I feel like it's relatively stock by this point. It's like kind of debatable how many you should play. I almost played 3. I only ended up playing 2 because I wanted to fit in 3 negate and one disdainful stroke. I like having Destroy Evil. It's just... It's a good Doomblade, I guess, in the format. I don't really believe in Obstinate Bailoff like other people. I think Tranquil Throwback is a lot more powerful and shores up a lot of holes in random matchups. In fact, like, I think Tranquil Throwback was one of the more important cards for me to have in my deck versus CFT Sock. Like, just a Tormod's Crypt is good versus their deck when they're trying to return all of their lands from their graveyard or whatever, you know. Having the 4th Lockdown is excellent. Having Wandering Emperor, again, extra answer to creature lands, just flash threat. It's just a good card. I don't think I really have to say more than that. Deshaun's Tidewinder number 2, important in a lot of matchups. If you want to play a flash game, it's good. Sometimes I had it in versus my Esper or Blue Black opponents, depending on how they played. Do I have a link for the list? Yeah, give me 1 sec. Oh, if you... Okay, maybe I'll just put back to where it was. Okay. So yeah, that's what's really going on there with most of that stuff. What plays... Okay, so it kind of depends on how their deck is built, I think is more accurate. The more Shieldrits my opponent has, the more likely I'm to have Tidebinder. Also, their Tidebinders kind of make me want Tidebinder as well. Obviously, it's like really expensive to have enough mana to go like Atraxa, Tidebinder, or Tidebinder, but that's like theoretically possible. Especially more so in Game 1. How bad is the Splendid Wreck matchup? I think I'm going to start Game 1, down Game 1 basically virtually every time. So I have to get to like 70% game win rate in a post-board game to be even, and I don't think that's really possible. I mean, I made it close. It's just Game 3, I exiled like 40 of their cards from their graveyard with a Tranquil Throwback. By only 31 cards left on my deck. They Jace 4'd me twice and I died. So, you know, good beats. I guess I'll just go to the tournament path and we can talk about that. Oh, that's not that. That's for a vintage tournament I'm going to play later in the year. Okay, there it goes. It's loading. Okay, let's see. I should be able to click on this and see the tournament path. Alright. So, round 1. Okay. So, round 1 I played against George Jabor. And basically, if you know George, he's always Azorius Control no matter what the format is. So I knew what I was in for. Lost Game 1. The next 2 games were kind of sloppy. Like, they were quickly played on both sides, so kind of sloppy on both sides. But I managed to pull it out. Don't really remember much about it, except, like, I think I snuck a Nissa 7 through in Game 3 to basically win eventually. Round 2. It's kind of an interesting story. It's kind of a funny story. I'll tell it real quick. But I did lose the match to Azorius Mentor, like the Helping Hand deck. But in Game 1, when I played... so basically, their first 2 lands were Chinese Deserted Beaches altered, like alt art. And then the minute I played Cavern of Souls, my Chinese Avacyn restored Cavern of Souls, they started talking to me rapid fire Chinese. And my response was... okay, I basically told them in Chinese, I do not want to play this match in Chinese because my Chinese is not good enough to play this match in Chinese. Very slowly, and then they went back to English, thankfully. But, yeah, I mean, I lost that match. I thought they were doing well, and then I think they lost, like, round 6, 7, and 8 to not day 2. It looked like that to me or something like that, but, you know, good for them. Round 3... I played against Jeskai Tokens. kind of straightforward. Like my deck is going to beat a deck that's just trying to like play mid-range token strategy. It was not like Boros Convoke. It was like Iconoclast and Monastery Mentor. And if you just like try to like do that stuff without having like a million spell pierces, it's not going to go very well for you. So round 4, I play against a friend of the stream, Bobby Fortunelli. Bobby had the misfortune of starting with only 4 cards in his hand in game 1, and it was still close because basically, if he drew Atraxa, I think he would have been ahead. Because he basically had 7 mana on turn 5, I think is what I want to say. Instead, he just spent a lot of time cycling, and I think the card disadvantage was just too much for him. Yeah, you should have tried having more cards in your hand. Bobby Fortunelli. What happened game 2? I'm trying to remember. I think I got kind of just steamrolled. I don't even remember, really. I don't think it was a close game. I think I just got kind of destroyed. I'm really trying to remember, but... Oh, you stuck at turn 5 Nessa after forcing me top load. Yeah, the one thing I like about my list is I have a million counterspells to side in and a million Tidebinders, but really you have to have mana up when they cast Nissa, otherwise it's just not going to end well. Also, the post-board games kind of get weird because you kind of want to leave up Negate as long as you have lands to play. So, like, just to negate their ramp, because if they ever stick in an Invasion of Zendikar, it's kind of a disaster. Until it's not a disaster, then like later in the game, Invasion of Zendikar really doesn't matter. So there's that. So round 5, Nate Chafe. It's funny because that's a guy who used to play with Kurt Spiess and them in Baltimore a lot. So I didn't really think it could be the same Nate Chafe. And then when I got to the table, it was in fact the same Nate Chafe. He was just playing stock Boros Convoke. And I guess like a funny aside is he said my deck was cool, and I'm just like, bro, it's just stock domain. Like, I don't know what to tell you. This is literally just a stock deck with maybe like a few tweaks. I think he just really hadn't seen a lot of domain on the arena ladder, weirdly enough, in the past few days. So he didn't really know about domain, which I do think is it's kind of interesting that can even happen. I don't think I actually played very much MTGO before this tournament, standard MTGO before this tournament. Yeah, I don't think I really played any. And then round 6, my opponent has a Worlds playmat. I was trying to remember because I sort of recognized the name. And I couldn't remember what deck that they had played in Worlds, but it turned out they had played Domain in Worlds and then switched to Dimir for this tournament. So, kind of funny. I just want to make a general note about Dimir and Esper matchups as Domain, whereas basically if they're not killing you very fast, you should not play into their soft counters. Basically, just try to dead them as long as you have enough lands in hand. Just wait them out. There are certain times this will punish you, but I think you just win a lot more if you just don't get obliterated by a Temple Black Hole and just make other plays that slowly develop your mana. Like, I'll often play like a Stomper on 5 mana instead, or I'll like use a Cavern to double kick an Angel, which you basically should always do anyways. Basically, like, whenever they leave up mana, there's a very narrow range of plays that they could have. It's usually Gopher Throat, Make Disappear, or Fairy Mastermind, or Malcolm from Dimir. So you can really just like make their Make Disappears awkward if you play slow, or force them to give up material. Yo, Gershi, thank you for the congrats. I'm just talking about the tournament and my thoughts on Standard currently. I played mostly stock Domain. I guess I technically had the best finished, but I also think my sideboard was a little bit better than a lot of the other Domain lists, frankly. But, you know, that's just my opinion. Round 7, I think this was a friendly Canadian. I couldn't remember. I knew he played a lot of MTGO. and he was just playing Esper. So I do like those UBX matchups in general, but you can lose them. I would say you're probably ahead in game one as long as you don't get Gixed, mostly. And from Esper, it's as long as Rafine doesn't run you over completely as well. So basically, it's like the critical 3-drop. A major fail state of those Dimir / Esper decks is if they draw too much interaction and not enough like pressure versus you, you can just wait them out forever. And just make your land drops and dead their No More Lies or make disappear, which I actually think happened in round 7, game 3 versus that Esper opponent. I just waited until my 10th untapped mana source or to draw a Cavern of Souls. Either would have done it for my Atraxa versus what I thought was a pretty obvious No More Lies, and then at the end of the game he just showed me the very sad No More Lies that basically didn't do anything for like 5 turns. But like it's just so easy to deduce that stuff, I think, because what realistically can be in their hand, it's like either removal or No More Lies or some sort of counterspell like Disdainful Stroke. So I just wanted to wait, for a land to cold it. And then round 8, I also played against an Esper opponent. Notably, this Esper opponent played a lot more aggressively, so I left in a lot more sweepers. This person was just willing to jam all of their creatures into play and never hold back. So I basically just left in every single sweeper I had versus them. I don't normally do that, but I think it's important to adjust to how your opponent actually plays the game. I'll usually shave like one of the expensive sweepers and one of the lockdowns versus Esper. Versus Dimir, I usually just leave all of the lockdowns because they don't actually have a good way of killing lockdowns, so Lockdown's actually a pretty good 3-mana sweeper versus Deep Cavern Bat and Malcolm or Fairy Mastermind. Also, Lockdown technically covers the Schooner, if people are still playing that. One of my opponents still had one Schooner in their deck. In fact, it was this person who beat me. Round 9, this is Karate Dom and MTGO. I had already seen him playing Dimir, so I knew what I was in for. Yeah, it depends on the exact Dimir list. Like, versus this Dimir person, friend of the stream, CCR, I did not leave in Lockdown because he had no Spyglass Sirens this weekend. And if they don't have any Spyglass Sirens, then it kind of loses some of its power because it only hits... You go from, like, hitting 16 of their creatures to, like, 8 or 12 or 10. Again, like, it really depends on what you see. It really depends on the player and how they play, So, played against Dimir. This person was playing Invasion of Amonkhet Dimir, but they had Spyglass Siren. So I left in a few lockdowns, not all of them. This person just beat me with, like, Bat Gix both games, and I just didn't have great hands. Round 12 was Aspiring Spike, also a friend of the stream. Basically, game 1, I stuck a Nissa 5 on turn, like, early on, and he was missing lands, and he just died to the Nissa 5, which I think it's kind of rare for the matchup to play out like that. I think game one for Domain versus Azorius is the bad one, because I have 7 sweepers in my deck, and they don't do anything versus Azorius. Like, if I just draw one, it's just a mulligan. So I'm more likely to have, like, 3 to 4 dead cards in my hand by the mid-game, but fortunately I just drew a Nissa 7 and it killed him. In game 3, he missed land drops again and kind of died horribly. Like, he was casting, like, Deduce's main phase to try to hit lands and was failing and had to discard. Sometimes it's that easy. Round 13, this was an Esper Midrange opponent. The difference about this person's deck was they had Doorkeeper Throw in it. I think that card is a huge problem for Domain, because it's not that easy to, like, always have a Leyline Binding for it. In fact, Leyline Binding is super taxed in your deck versus them. So I think I basically lost because their list was better versus Domain and my draws weren't top of the line. Like, I think sometimes versus the Esper decks, you need to have a top of the line draw versus them when they have their top of the line draws. Otherwise, you can't really compete. Round 14, I think I got really lucky again, but you know, sometimes that happens. Basically, there were two spots in both game 1 and 3 where it looked like my opponent had to make disappear, but I had no better play because I was getting beaten down. So I just cast all my stuff and everything resolved. So they basically lost because I just didn't wait this time, I guess is the best way of putting it. But basically, I just didn't know, like, the game felt weird. It felt like they had it, and then I just cast my spell and they didn't have it, you know? And it turns out the standings were somewhat unclear to me. I thought the winner of this match would get ninth, but then after the match, Jesse Robkin, also a friend of the stream, came up to us and said the winner of this match was probably going to top 8, unless if like there was a huge tiebreaker shift. So it was nice. And then they ran the top 8 the day after the end of Swiss, which I'm thankful for. I mean, that meant I could go get like a reasonable dinner with some friends, and it was nice. And then I lost to CFT Sock. Like, I guess we can look at their deck. I think this matchup in game 1 for Domain is heinous. It basically seems unwinnable unless if I need like an outlier, a bad outlier draw from them. But yeah, basically my sweepers are dead. The game's always going to look the same because it's going to last so long. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I mean, also look at, they have 36 lands and 68 cards. It's just, it's so, what's the best way of putting it? It's so fun to look at, I guess. I took game 2 because of Tranquil Throwback, and I thought I was going to take game 3 off of it. Instead, I got Jace. I got Jace for 30 cards when there were 31 cards in my deck, so I don't know. To be fair, when I revealed Throwback off of Traxa in game 2, the CFT Sock made note of that and said, that's kind of a problem. I'm like, yeah, I think my post-board games are so much better versus you. Because I actually have, like, real cards in my deck, you know. But it is peak CFT Sock. I did spend a lot of time watching them play, though, so I had a better idea of how to approach the matchup in a post-board game. I also think my Tidebinders are super good versus them, because if you tag an Aftermath Analyst or Nissa Trigger, it kind of shuts down a lot of what they're trying to do, you know. How good do I think this deck is in general? So that's an interesting question. My suspicion is a lot of people did not play very well against it. And also, I think the tools are in Standard to make this matchup a lot better for certain decks. Like, you could just even play, like, Unlicensed Hearse, and that's pretty good. Like, the way this deck is constructed right now, there's not that many answers to Unlicensed Hearse besides the 2 Boseiju and maybe Duresses, right? Like, I think Hearse seems like a beating. I also think, I don't know about the rest. I suspect Boros in game 1 is probably favored, but, like, I guess, like, you technically have 3 sweepers in your main deck. It's not playable on Arena because there's a hard cap on turn length of 6 minutes. Oh, that's really funny. So we'll never know for the Arena events. I think they just built this deck on Wednesday. I know Tristan mentioned talking to Sock about Echoing Deeps and playing that card. Because there's like some weird interactions with this. So, Bobby, I don't know if you knew this. Do you know if there's Echoing Deeps in the graveyard and a Broker's Hideout, you can have the Echoing Deeps copy Broker's Hideout? It's like the reverse of Vesuva is what I was told. And I'm just like, that is bananas that it works that way, but I also believe Josh's when they tell me that. You knew that? Okay. It's just so, like... yeah, there's a lot of nonsense stuff. Okay, so I will also... I wrote a tweet saying my understanding of the loop Let's see if I can find it. Yo, thanks. So the way this deck loops is... Wait, where is it? Where did I put it? Okay, so the way you can loop is, suppose you have a bunch of lands in your graveyard. You use Aftermath Analyst to return all of them with Nis in play, so you get a bunch of mana. And theoretically you have a Solgurk in play. You auto-wire your Solgurk to return auto-wire and Takenuma. Takenuma back your Analyst. Oh, I guess you need 2 Takenumas, I guess, then. No, you have Solgurk in your hand, never mind. So you replay this... I guess you play the Solgurk first, then Takenuma back your Analyst, then play Analyst, activate an auto-wire. Like, you basically can generate a ton of mana, even if there's nothing left to fetch in your deck, because all of those lands go to the graveyard by themselves, and the legendary lands die to the legend rule. So you basically have a bunch of lands that sacrifice themselves a bunch of times. So basically, this is closer to eggs in the endgame than anything else, which is kind of funny. This is like land-based eggs instead of... Yeah, Solgurk is necessary, but it's not the primary thing that's going on. Solgurk just happens incidentally in the late game because you mill so much of your deck, and you'll basically find it with Takenuma. What is the kill with all mana? So instead of looping, you'll eventually get to a point where you can return 2 Otawaras instead. So you just Otawara, bounce your Jace, Jace, Otawara, bounce your Jace, Jace, Otawara, bounce your Jace, Jace. Because basically you'll get to a point where there are 2 Otawaras and Takenuma in your graveyard, because the Analyst is milling three cards every time as well. Like, you can basically mill your entire deck as well, and just reach an actual board state where it's guaranteed to be lethal. Now, the real issue is, for them, they don't even have to full combo me, because Domain is so slow that if you mill them for 45 cards, they probably die on average. So, like, 3 -5s of Jace is lethal versus Domain most of the time. Is what I would say. So I do not like this matchup. I think it's just extremely bad. And the Sock had seen me playing, so they knew I was on Domain. So, yep, that's my tournament. And, I think Sock ended up winning, so, congrats to them. It's a nice payout. Let's see, do they win? Yeah, they beat Azorius Control in a rematch 2-0. It says they beat me 2-0, but that's not actually true. But it doesn't really matter. The judge filled it in 2-0, I guess. I don't really care. It literally does not matter. I am surprised that they beat this Reanimator deck 2-0. Where's the next Pro Tour? It's in Seattle. There's no side events for that one. It's like a closed one, which is kind of sad, but, is what it is. Let's see. How much did they get? First place, 15,000. 5th through 8th, 2,000. Damn. Huge price differential, but, is what it is. The payouts are actually pretty good. So, like, 49th to 96th. I guess if you add all of these together, it adds up to 75,000, if I had to guess, but I'm not going to check that. So that is mostly that. I'm going to fill in some of the spots about sideboarding, how I generally approached it, if people want to hang out for that for a bit. Alright, Esper, what was I doing? Usually 3 of these came out. 1 to 2 Atraxa came out. Nissa's not necessary. To have fun? Yeah. I don't think you should really play if you're not going to have fun. Alright. Sighting in Seatrack. Long goodbye. Destroy Evil versus Esper. Wandering Emperor versus Esper. Tidebinder versus Esper. Yeah, that looks right. So a lot of the games, I'm just cutting my invasions, and if you cut invasion, you want to shave one of your expensive cards, really. Ari Lax, Hyra, and I went to Apollonia on Thursday, which is like kind of an expensive restaurant, but it was super nice. The demise of Standard has been greatly exaggerated. Well, there are some things I don't like about Standard, but I think Wizards actively tried to make Standard come back, and they somewhat succeeded, is what I would say. So that is what's going on there. Also, I'm not sure if I believe these metagame numbers, but whatever, that's fine. These were like auto-imported from Goldfish, I guess. All right, Azorius. Again, you don't need the invasions because rushing to them doesn't do very much. Your sweepers are also really, really, really bad versus Azorius. Let's see, so that's 10. I think I've... Yeah, I mean, it's good. So that's 12 out 10. There was something else. Did I get all of... Oh, I think I was cutting like one Archangel because it's not even that good. And one of something else. It might have been a Stomper because it's like honestly not that good either, but I think I might have just shaved around the edges because the thing about the white-blue matchup is I think game 1 is like very different from game 2. Game 2, they basically always try to turbo Sea Shark you. And if you don't have a terror for it, you lose. And the sweepers are not a good way to attack that, is what I would say. All of your counters are good, your terrors are good, your Sea Sharks are good, your Wandering Emperor is good, and your Tidebinder is good as well. If you Tidebinder a Field of Ruin, it's actually really, really, really good for some. Mono Red, I don't think this deck is very popular, but why destroy evil over Get Lost? I like being able to kill Leyline Bindings in the Domain Mirrors as well, or killing their... Well, actually, okay. Let me re-answer that. Destroy evil. Let me make sure I remember correctly. Okay, so actually, I have a better answer for that. Sorry. It's in the Esper matchup. I think if you give them maps, it's actually not very good because their deck is well equipped to use the maps on random idiots. They have a lot of random creatures to put maps on. That's the real reason for me, personally. Of course, it's going to cost you sometimes when there's like a Planeswalker you want to kill. I don't disagree with that. But I think generally I would prefer Destroy Evil in that regard. Sorry, I need to recalibrate my thoughts. Alright. Mono Red. Alright. These suck. Atraxis not needed versus Mono Red. Neither is Nissa Ascended Animist. Neither is Tidebinder. I used to have a bunch of knockout blows, which I don't anymore. So that's kind of a shame. Sea Shark is good. These are good. Destroy Evil is not very good. Tranquil Throwback is good. Lockdown is good. And Wandering Emperor is good. That should be 8 for 8, right? Yep. Alright, Dimir. Again, this is very build specific. But in general, I'm shaving these again. One Atraxa. The Nissa. It's very similar to the Esper matchup, except Destroy Evil is a little bit worse. But again, like you can judge. If they're like leaning on Shieldred, I would have more Destroy Evils in. But the creatures with Flash are generally pretty good. If they have like a bunch of Cryptic Coats, I would consider having one Tranquil Throwback in as well. Sometimes I shave one of the expensive sweepers versus them, usually a Sunfall, but it really depends. it's also debatable if you want for lockdown or not. Again, it depends on how your opponent's approaching it. Let's see. What else was I cutting in this matchup? If they're the Invasion of Amonkhet version, I cut 2 Atraxas instead, actually, because it's even more of a liability. Because if they ever flip Invasion of Amonkhet into an Atraxa, the game is just over. You're actually dead. Like, you do not want them to have a 3-mana Atraxa, I think. So, versus the Invasion version, I go down to 1 Atraxa. I'm trying to remember what else was the last card I was cutting. Maybe I wasn't even siding in the extra Tidebinder. That might have been it sometimes. Again, it's like very dependent on how my opponent plays as well. Like, I go back and forth on it. The difference between Esper and Dimir is Destroy Evil is much better versus them, and Tidebinder is much better versus them. So, but I think leaving in 1 Tidebinder is still good versus Dimir. The other card that's actually kind of interesting to Tidebinder sometimes is Cryptic Coat, because then it stops them from returning it to their hand. All right, Golgari Midrange. What happens here? This is a matchup where I don't actually cut this card, because what Golgari tries to do is they don't have any counter spells. The way they play, they just try to cut off all of your resources. So having a 2-for-1 actually matters a lot. I think versus them, I would cut my Nissa, or my Tidebinder and my Nissa. I don't think Tidebinder is very good versus them. I would probably have this in, and probably like Destroy Evils, and maybe like 1 Long Goodbye. Oh, and I think Lockdown's kind of not very good versus them, so this would probably go. So probably 2 Long Goodbye, and probably the Seed Sharks, so that's 7. What else was I cutting? I'm trying to remember. I haven't played against Golgari in so long. Like, I literally didn't play against Golgari in the tournament, so maybe my plan's not even that good versus them. Is what I would say. I'm trying to remember. I can't really remember. All the sweepers are super good versus them because all of their creatures are really, like, big. Like, the Sunfalls and Depopulates are very, very, very good versus Golgari. One of the major ways they beat you, I think, is Liliana the Veil. So this is, like, the only matchup where I think Obstinate Baloth would be better than Tranquil Throwback, but I don't even have it coming in right now, so that's how it is. The song is really, really good, though, by the way. I really don't remember what else I was cutting. Does anyone have an idea of what it would be? Any domain experts out there? Have I discussed Case yet? No, I didn't play with it, and it kind of felt like I didn't need another expensive grindy card. But I will admit I hadn't played with it. My primary issue is I think like the games where you have access to 7 lands are not the ones you need to worry about in general. Because the way to solve the case is to get to 7 lands. Of course, like, I might change my mind after trying it at some point, you know? Well, it only plays a bad invasion impression if you have lands in your hand. Right? Does it let you play these lands off the top for free? Even not solved? Case of... Like, if you're low on resources and you don't have extra lands in your hand, this card doesn't do very much, right? Like, this is a classic exploration problem where if you don't have extra ways of getting cards, it's not very good, you know? If I played this card, I would have 4 Invasion of Zendikar in my deck before the first copy of this card, I think. And I don't even have that right now, so... Rakdos mid... Oh, well, I'm still... Okay, I guess I'll add... Wait, how did... What the hell? Is there no Rakdos mid? Wait, what happened? Wait, where did the other one go? Wasn't there something there before? Alright. Rakdos. Whoa. My computer's freaking out, it looks like. Wait. Why is it freaking out now? Something's eating a lot of RAM, it looks like. I don't know what's eating a lot of RAM. Scroll bar... Wait, where's... Oh. Oh, Rakdos mid is over there. Okay, I guess I'll delete this one. Hold on. We're learning. Wait. How do I delete it? Close... Shift scroll? Yeah, I'm trying to... How do I actually... Oh, it's probably down here, right? Okay, there we go. Delete. I didn't realize there was a scroll bar here on the bottom. Alright, Gruul Aggro, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I think that deck hasn't existed for... This is like the Picnic Roner Giant Growth deck. I basically have not seen that in forever. That matchup is, like, really, really not very good. Alright, Rakdos mid... Rakdos mid and Golgari are similar in execution. I think Lockdown is better versus them because they can't blow it up. So, I think your expensive... These, like, the Tidebinder and other thing are not very good versus them. All of the card drawers are good. All of the sweepers are good. The Invasion's good for similar reasons. If they're Breach the Multiverse Rakdos, if they're the big Rakdos deck... We found out the way to beat them is to just cut all of your Atraxas, then they have nothing good to breach into, and then you beat them with just normal cards. I'm not kidding. That has literally happened to me a bunch of times when I played that matchup post-board when we figured that out. They would just cast Breach and hit like an Archangel of Wrath, and we don't care if they have an Archangel of Wrath. We care if they hit an Atraxa, and the way to avoid that is to just have no Atraxas in your deck. That's good. I think Destroy Evil is okay, not great. Long Goodbye is also okay, not great. 5-head? I mean, like... I cut Atraxa a lot more than most people, I think, is my suspicion. I don't remember what else I was cutting because now right now there's a 2 mismatch here. I just haven't played against Golgari in so long. I also haven't played in the versus the Rakdos deck in so long, basically because it basically got outmoded. I don't even know by what. Some people don't cut Atraxa versus Convoke. Well, I think having Atraxa in your deck versus Mono Red or Convoke is just like, I don't understand, because the games are decided by turn 4 in those matchups. You don't even have time to cast like double Rampant Growth versus them. Damn, what was I cutting versus the small Rakdos deck? I think I was shaving like 1 Atraxa versus this deck, even the small one. I think it was just like I was shaving like 1 of a lot of things. Not Invasion of Zendikar because that gets you resources, but like I don't really remember. Maybe it was like, yeah, I would have to go back and think about this one. Bant Toxic. Well, that matchup is still bad. I mean, I have more lockdowns in my deck, I guess, but that matchup has always been kind of bad and not really fixable, is what I would say. How we sideboard versus Splendid Rec deck. Oh, I'll just tell you. I'm not going to put it on here because it seems kind of pointless, but I'll just go over it real quick. So why is my computer freezing on this? My computer's like freezing on typing this in. Did you all see that? It was stuck. Does anyone know why it would get stuck? Alright, I'll just tell you what I did versus Splendid Rec deck, which is I cut all 7 of my sweepers. I cut 1 Herd Migration because I don't think it's that important. I sided in Seed Shark, all of my negates, Disdainful Stroke, both Tranquil Fieldbacks, Wandering Emperor, and Tishana's Tidebinder. I don't know if that lines up, but it was something like that. I might have cut like a second Herd Migration. But basically, you really do not want to let them have their graveyard, and you also want all of the Stifle Fish you had. If I had 4 Tidebinders in my sideboard for that matchup, they would all be in my deck. Alright, Bant. Alright, the problem in the Bant matchup is none of your expensive cards are good. Really? Like, this card sucks. Your sweepers are okay, but not great. But it's really hard to make the matchup good. Like, I think you're probably just going to lose quite often, if I had to guess. Yeah, Invasion doesn't matter versus them. Again, the games are decided so fast versus Bant Toxic that, like, what is your plan with these stupid cards? You just want to play a smaller game, not a big game, you know? Actually, I like Throwback versus them because it blocks and could kill a Skrulf's Hive. And probably I would shave, like, 1 Beanstalk probably versus them. So this is mostly what I would do, I think. Oh yeah, I kind of did not expect to play against Toxic because the Toxic deck into Boros is really, really bad for Toxic. Like, that matchup is like, it's really, really not good, I think. So I kind of just didn't expect there to be, like, I might play against Toxic, like, round 1 or 2, but after that I kind of just was hoping it wouldn't be around it, and it really wasn't. Wouldn't we want... No, Nissa costs too much, I think. Like, the real problem is their deck has a million Spell Pierces or, like, Bring the Endings or whatever. Like, I don't really want to tap out for Nissa ever. It's, like, actually a lot better... It's a lot better to tap out for creatures versus them, I think. Especially because of Cavern of Souls. When I used to have Knockout Blow in my sideboard, I would sideboard it in versus Bant, actually. But it wasn't even really that good. It was just kind of awkward. The other reason you can't cut Herd Migration is that long goodbye is really important. So you need the extra black sources off of Herd Migration to just like cast the long goodbye early. Yeah, this is a 7-drop Planeswalker, not the 3-mana 3/3. So, let's see. Is there anything else to talk about? I guess this is like mostly the sideboarding. Do people have other questions about my opinions on Standard, I guess? Yeah, that's the other reason I went back to 4 Herd Migration, like I mentioned at the beginning. I want to cast Lockdown on 3. I want to cast Long Goodbye. What? Let's see, one sec. Wait, where did the melee page go? What are my opinions on Standard? I kind of think there's too many sets in Standard. Like, the Standard duration, I think, is just too long, frankly. Where will it be going in the upcoming weeks? Where will it be going? Were there changes I wish I made? Not really, which is probably a good sign. Okay, let's actually look at the metagame, and then I can tell you where I think Standard should go for this event. Tiny Bones? Is that spoiled? I don't even know what thing that is. Oh, so there are multiple Sultai ramp decks. They're all different, which is kind of funny. Like, one of the Sultai ramp decks was not the same as CFT Sock's deck. So this is like kind of a misnomer. We'll just sort by number of decks. Right. Esper Midrange, I mean, like, very popular, close to like a 50% deck. Boros Convoke, like, weirdly above 50%. It has like a high fail rate, but I don't know. There's also Domain Ramp and Domain Control, but my suspicion is these are really the same deck. It's like really 50%. Azorius Control better than 50%. I think this deck will become more and more popular as it keeps going on. Coupon, I answered this earlier. I think Instant's a lot more powerful than Sorcery because it kills your creature lands as well. I also killed Kaito Shizuki and Liliana the Veil. So I am very low on Barrage, is what I would say. I understand the black versus red source thing, though, obviously. That's why I have an extra Rafine's Tower where most people have another forest. Bant had an abysmal win rate. Alright, so probably upcoming, the decks you should expect to play against in RCQs is like Azorius, Domain, Boros, Esper, Dimir. And then after that, I'm not really sure. I guess like maybe Golgari, but Golgari honestly did not look great. Like, both Ari Lax and Ellen Bogan said, oh, we've been winning a lot with with Golgari. And then they both got, like, destroyed in this tournament, so I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think the deck is just not great, personally. Well, you're Zax, not Ari Lax. Azorius, because it's similar to Pioneer deck. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, like, I think fundamentally it plays very differently from the Pioneer deck, so you might not like that if you're not used to it. So yeah, those are my short thoughts on it. Obviously I wish I had won my quarterfinals match, but it's really hard to win a match when you're going to start down game 1 basically every time. Then you need to be like 70% to even get close to like having a chance. Yeah, Golgari decks feel like they were from Standard 10 years ago. They feel underpowered and clunky compared to other black midrange decks. Definitely agree with that. Like, I guess we'll just look at a Golgari deck, but this is like the kind of shit I would have loved to play like 10 years ago, yeah. Like, we can't even find one. Alright, finally, we found one at 8 and 6, or 2 8 and 6s. Like, yeah, it's just like, I mean, they're just so clunky, so clunky. Yep, zero interest in this shit, personally. Like, Trinkle Throwback really good, though. Not... Actually, let's see who did the best with Bant Toxic. Bant Toxic. Wait, what? Can I not search by deck? Bant. What? I was searching the name? What the hell? How do I search decklist column? Can I search the decklist column? No. What the fuck? I thought I could search for all of the decks of one type. I do not want to do that. I remember being able to filter by decklist. Maybe now? No, it still keeps showing. Time to think. Well, I mean but that's not what I want to look at each individual thing. Like there's 25 of them. I want to see each. I'll just go page by page, I guess. All right, Bant. Oh fuck! And see, it scrolls all the way down there. That's not even helpful. All right, this person went 9-5 with Bant. Is there anything special? No, this is like basically the same list that's been floating around forever, right? See how their tournament path will look like. They... Okay, so... oh, holy shit. They went 1... No, they went 1-2 versus Boros. Okay. Oh, I see. I can do... So I can do this. Yeah, okay, I see. Okay, so... This is Pugface on MTGO, I think. Warren Woodward went 7-7. Then Horkley went 5-3. Yeah, the deck just kind of got destroyed. So, like, I don't know. This is probably not something you wanted to be doing, really. Like, the best finish was 9-5, and that's, like, one of the better players, probably, in this tournament. Like, they probably could have won more with a better deck. So I think it's a hard sell to play this deck for me personally. I also just don't really enjoy those bad mana decks. Like the Bant Toxic mana is something else. The Boros mana is also not good, but it's better than Bant's, I think. Let's see. Oh, one interesting thing is this Sultai control deck was actually Sultai Reanimator. I was watching them play once, but like. It's a Squirming Emergence 1 with the Multiverse Founding and Third Path deck. So, I mean, yeah, Bant does lose to itself often, but you are allowed to mulligan. Is this the Infest? Yeah, it's Infest. Is this the Infest from LCI? How many Infest... How many Infests do we need to print? Well, like, why does Malicious Eclipse and Malicious Malfunction... Oh, wait, the Eclipse is only for your opponent's creatures? But why? Do we really need to, like, do this? Whatever. I do not understand, like, why we have to, like, make slightly different versions of things. But yeah, this deck is cool. Portal to Phyrexia, Jesus. Good card to tinker for, that's for sure, but... I guess good card to Squirming Emergence out. Ooh, this looks like a really good Terror Tide deck, too. I think this person lost to CFT Sock in the top 4. They did, yeah. I'm trying to imagine what happens when this deck plays against Sock's deck. I think what actually happens is this deck doesn't kill very fast, so Sock is just like gonna get to do their thing and, you know, kill them with the loops. That's what it looks like to me, anyways. Also, why when I hover over a card does it like default to like the most unreadable version of a card? Is the other question. Is it just me or is this card like basically unreadable like this? Because of the like white text on pink and purple. No, I think other people could win with Sock's deck. I also think the other thing is, I believe the deck was built very recently, and that Jason stayed up late and worked with them on it instead of like sleeping before the Pro Tour, which I find like kind of bananas too. Um, what is the loop? My understanding is, suppose you have Nissa 3 out, the one that like landfalls makes mana, and you have Aftermath Analyst with a bunch of lands in your graveyard, and Slow Gurk. You can basically like you can basically use Analyst, make a bunch of mana, use Takenuma to return the Analyst, use Ottawar and your Slow Gurk to return 3 lands to your hand, including like probably Ottawar and Takenuma. Takenuma back the Analyst and repeat. And theoretically, if you have enough lands in your graveyard, it should net mana every time. I don't know the exact threshold. I would have to like sit down and work it out, but that is my understanding of the basic core idea. It's 11. I mean, I'll believe you. I don't right now. I do not have interest in working it out, if that makes sense. In fact, I think I'm probably going to be done with Standard until I have to play another Standard tournament for a while. Which I think might literally be the Pro Tour in 2 months from now that I am now qualified for. Yo, y'all, can you believe it will be my 23rd Pro Tour? That's just so many. It's just like, maybe I'll have a good finish this time. Jesus Christ. I like Seattle as a city though. That city's really nice. Goddamn. Maybe I'll actually have a good finish. But yeah, we'll see. You're still trying to earn your first one? You know what they say. 23rd time is the charm. Oh. Chicken Arise says, I'm kind of glad no need to worry about standards for the new set, mostly from a card acquisition standpoint. Kind of brutal that Pro Tour Seattle is the one that doesn't have an attached conversion. I wonder if they'll let people come Railbird. I really wonder. The upside of not having played a Pro Tour is you don't have a 5-10 record at Pro Tours. Who has a 5-10 record at Pro Tours? Alright, I think those are most of my thoughts on Standard. I'll post the link to this sideboard guide later. Did I scoop to a guy so he could go 9-7 Twitter joke? I have not had the best experiences with that person either, but I'm not going to hate on someone who's already been hated on a bunch right now, so...